Show.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Masters Fantasy Show, brought to you by MastersFantasyFootballLeagues.com. As always, joined by the Masters crew, Dynasty Owl, the Doc. I'm the Commish. What's up, guys? How you doing today?
Fantastic.
Doing great.
Good to hear, man. As always, we're going to be talking some Dynasty football today, taking a look at the wide receiver position. These are some trade targets for rebuilding teams, some guys we like, some guys we think you should keep your eye on, especially if you're a rebuilding team. With that said, I'll kick it over to you guys, whichever you want to go first. Wide receivers that you're targeting on your rebuilding teams.
Sure. So I'll go first on this one. I've got two, and they're kind of complete opposite ends of the spectrum here. One is a young up-and-coming player that I think he's broken out slightly, but his value is still relatively affordable in dynasty leagues, and that's Cardinals' Rondell Moore. This is a guy we've talked about at length, his college resume, all that. So I don't need to do too much of that. But I mean, we saw this guy. I don't want to say breakout, but kind of, literally week one. I mean, he showed what he could do. He flashed that potential, and he's been pretty solid all year, really. But he hasn't been great. It's been super hard to start him, in most formats because the consistency is not there. But I mean, they've got DeAndre Hopkins. They have AJ Green, who's played much better than I think a lot of us expected. Christian Kirk's another name who's played better than a lot of us expected this year. But Kirk has a contract year coming up, and AJ Green has a retirement coming up eventually here. So, I think long-term, the opportunities are just going to continue to grow. We talked about this being the perfect landing spot for him. He's already kind of flashed what he can do. So I think it's a perfect scenario where you've seen enough that you're comfortable, like, hey, this guy's going to be around for a long time, but also he hasn't done too much where he's no longer affordable. So I think he's kind of an affordable rebuild piece, maybe like a decent receiver and a future second rounder, I think could get him, like I'm trying to think of a veteran who's just like, I don't know, Tyler Boyd in a second, I think could easily bring him in. And, I think in a few years when Rondell Moore is a pretty legit piece and a powerful offense, I think you'd, like the looks of that a lot. Do you guys want to comment on that before I go kind of complete opposite end of the spectrum on a rebuild trade target?
Yeah, and I was just thinking like a guy that I might even do it straight up for right now, which I'm debating. Like Brandon Cook straight up for Rondell Moore. I mean, maybe even a guy like Adam Thielen, although I mean he's kind of balling, so that'd be tough.
Yeah, right.
I'd probably want to pick back and like maybe Thielen for Moore and maybe that guy's second.
Right. But thinking about it this way too, a lot of people took Moore like really tail end of the first round this year or early second, but a lot the teams picking at the end of the first, typically, they were just in the championships. They get a guy like Rondell Moore, but now they're probably contending again. And if you're not having a great year and you've got that guy like Adam Thielen, like, yeah, you definitely could, hey, give me Rondell on the 2 and I'll give you Thielen to help you win the championship, or even just straight up. I don't hate that trade if you're the rebuild team.
Right. And I'll just add in too, man, as a guy that processes tons of trades a week. I don't know if it was like weeks 2 and 3 or weeks 3 and 4, but where Rondell Moore had that little mini explosion, probably the most traded player that week, bringing a first. Yeah. I've seen guys give up a first, second, and a third to go get more. And I think
I believe it. Yeah.
The dust has settled a little bit. I think he's a little bit cheaper, even than he was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I completely agree. Just kind of, I'm sure his rookie draft ADP was right about around in between 1.10 and like 2.3. And he's done nothing to, not live up to it. I mean, has he shown he's like a, bust-proof dynasty asset? No, but I mean, he definitely hasn't disappointed as a rookie. So I don't see why he wouldn't be worth like a late first. So that's my first guy. Other guy, kind of similar for people listening to our last show, similar to your Derrick Henry take, but obviously he kind of has had, way more of an injury fall off. And that's Saints receiver Michael Thomas. So I think, he was probably on some decent rosters. He's a complete wash this year. So if you're a contender, he's not going to help you at all because he ain't coming back this year. And then on top of that, I think the whole Odell Beckham saga has kind of hurt his value even more because, Odell's a guy who had some injuries, had some trade requests, and just never returned to form. I mean, this Michael Thomas guy, let's not forget, in 2019, he shattered, the fantasy position for receivers. I know there's been some injuries, a lot of quarterback turnover as well in New Orleans, but if he gets moved in the offseason and looks healthy and, goes to a more attractive landing spot. I think he easily could have a couple of years of wide receiver one seasons left in him. And that's either a guy you could, hold and play as your rebuilding team, or you could flip him this offseason. The second he gets traded to a decent team, you just unload him then and get way more for him than what you would pay for him right now.
Right. I like it. And I actually think that's a very under the radar strategy. Because Michael Thomas.
Because contenders don't want him right now. They're trying to win right now, and he ain't going to help you.
And most rebuilds aren't thinking, hey, I'm going to go get Michael Thomas.
Yeah.
He's 29 years old.
Yeah.
Dude, it's okay to trade again.
Yeah.
Because them same contending teams next year, like, hey, Michael Thomas is healthy.
Yep.
Value goes up, buying the dip on Michael Thomas, sell him again at his high.
100% agree. You know what your most important trade is?
What's that?
Your next one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. I love both of those picks, Al. I actually was going to pick Michael Thomas for my guy as well.
Really?
But I didn't want to do three guys in the same vein. I wanted to get someone that's actually, still active this year. And this guy, I mean, it's going to be tougher to get him. This is not a buy low by any means, but I do think this is a guy that's definitely underrated for where he's been thus far this year. And that's Michael Pittman. I feel like he's a guy that's really coming along. And I think this is a guy that I talked about. I mean, realistically, the time to get him was when I told you to get him in the off season. But right now I still like him. I like him a lot. He's averaging just a hair under 8 targets a game right now. Consistent red zone threat. I mean, Carson Wentz is starting to look more like the old Carson Wentz, which we didn't even know if that was possible. And it seems like his best target is Michael Pittman, who I believe is around like 7th in scoring this year among receivers, but it doesn't really feel that way, even though he's been balling the last few weeks. And I think his name value just doesn't carry as much weight as a lot of other receivers. Like I could think of probably 20 other receivers that would probably carry more weight, at least 20, than Michael Pittman. And the numbers would say that shouldn't be the case. So I think it's a guy worth shelling out a little bit to get, because I think he can be a cornerstone of your franchise going forward. So pay a little bit now. Again, it's going to be tough to get him off a playoff team, but I feel like you could give him, honestly, I feel like you could give him a guy like a Thielen and a pick, and he'd be like, you know what? Yeah, sure. Like Thielen's balling too. I don't know. I think you could cook something up like that and get a guy like Michael Pittman, who is, in my mind, is going to be a consistent stud from here on out in fantasy.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if you caught me going like this.
Oh, I saw it.
But that was because I did take your advice in the offseason, Doc.
Yeah,
there we Michael Pittman shares, and I'm loving him, man. Like, you guys nailed that one.
Yeah, I mean, I never liked to hype up a USC guy, but I mean, seeing him in person, he just fits the bill. He does everything you want your receiver to do. So, yeah. I mean, I got to give it up to him. He's been eating.
All right, good stuff. And this is gonna sound, dude, I was actually looking at Rondell Moore too.
Really?
Yeah, but you know what? As you were sitting here talking about it, I had the wide receiver list up, so I started like looking over the wide receiver list.
I almost went with Elijah Moore too.
And you know what? The guy that stuck out on this list to me, currently ranked number 25 at wide receiver, also turns 25 years old. Turns 25 years old this month.
DJ Moore.
No,
I guess right now.
round two, pick 15, actually. And if you rewind the show and go back and listen to Dynasty Owl's Rondell Moore take, I'm going to say everything applies to this guy too. And that's Christian Kirk, man.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, man, he's a guy that I've kind of overlooked. I don't know about you guys. I mean, I do know that he's done well this season, but even when I do the pecking order in Arizona, I always go Hopkins. I'll toss in Green because I like Green for this season.
Yeah.
And then, I automatically look ahead and put Rondell Moore third. I'm not so sure about that, man. Christian Kirk's looked really good. He's actually doing it this year, top 25 wide receiver. So I do think he's being overlooked in Kyler Murray's future. So, I mean, he's a guy that I think you could probably get really cheap, probably even cheaper than Rondell Moore. With the exact same upside and better production right now.
Yeah, I 1000% agree. And the doc knows I've been a Christian Kirk truther more than anyone. think last year I thought he was a lock for a top 24 receiver. It didn't happen. But yeah, I think you're completely right. The only thing that, like I said, I'm a little unsure of is they drafted Rondell pretty high, which I know they took Kirk in the second round too, but his contract's coming up. So I don't know what's going to happen. Either way, if he's not re-signed in Arizona, then we always say, well, then he's going to go somewhere that wants him and wants to use him for a specific role. So I definitely like his dynasty value going forward. I think he's a great buy candidate. And yeah, I love Christian Kirk.
Right. And just something else that stuck out when you said that earlier about, Hopkins coming back from injury, AJ Green, you were looking at retirement. DeAndre Hopkins he's right behind AJ Green, man.
Right. So hey, maybe in 3 years, maybe it's the Kirk and Rondell show. Maybe
that's what
the one I want to be.
Could be.
Possibly. So, all right, guys, that's going to wrap up this edition. As always, thanks so much for watching. If you guys could hit the like and subscribe button, come be a part of the Masters family. Any last words, guys?
Thanks for listening.